On a dying alien world, a stranded human crew thought they'd only find ruins and silence. But as the crimson sun bled toward the horizon, they realized the shadows were not empty. They were alive, watching, waiting, and nightfall was coming. Before we step into this story, if you enjoy stories where humanity stands against the dark, make sure you hit subscribe and like so you never miss what's coming next. Now, let's step beneath the red sky. The crash was not planned. The shuttle had been surveying the outer rim, charting forgotten systems, when the planet's gravity well tore them from their course. What should have been a smooth orbit became a descent through a choking, dust-red atmosphere, tearing metal and fire across the heavens. When the smoke cleared, the human team of 7 survivors emerged from wreckage onto a broken plain. The sky above was the color of rust, swirling with particulate haze. The sun, a swollen red giant nearing its death, hung low and bleeding across a fractured horizon. "This world's been dead a long time," Lieutenant Mara Ansel said, scanning the ruins jutting from the earth like broken teeth. "But not abandoned. Not completely." The ruins stretched for miles, jagged spires and shattered temples, once belonging to a civilization older than any human record. Carvings etched into stone depicted creatures with too many limbs, eyes like pits of night, and sprawling shadows trailing behind them. And everywhere those shadows stretched long and wrong, shapes that didn't quite match the crumbling structures around them. By day, the crew scavenged the wreckage for supplies. By evening, they pushed deeper into the ruins, searching for shelter before the cold set in. The first night they heard it. Not wind, not stone shifting, something else, scraping, dragging, shuffling, and whispers, faint, carried on no air. Private Calvo swore he saw movement along the temple walls, silhouettes slipping free from carvings. "I'm telling you," he hissed to Sergeant Durrell, "they're moving. They're watching us." The others dismissed it. Stress, trauma, hallucinations in the dust-thin atmosphere. But as the red sun sank lower each day, the shadows grew longer. They clung too tightly. They pulsed when no one moved. And then, one of the crew vanished. Ensign Petra Holt had been on watch at dusk. When the others checked her post, all they found was her rifle and her shadow, still stretched across the ground. But no Petra. The shadow moved. Panic nearly tore the survivors apart, but Lieutenant Ansel forced them back into discipline. They barricaded themselves inside a temple, sealing cracks with salvaged plating. Inside, they lit torches. Fire pushed the shadows back, but not far enough. Along the far walls, black shapes writhed, twitching just beyond the circle of light. Dr. Corin, the xenologist, studied the carvings again under flickering flame. His voice shook as he read the symbols. "They weren't gods," he whispered. "They weren't demons, they were predators. The last people here didn't worship them. They warned us." Sergeant Durrell spat. "Warned us of what?" Corin swallowed. "Of the night." On the third night, the temple walls groaned. The fire burned lower, wood nearly gone. From the dark came whispers that knew their names, voices of mothers, brothers, lost loves. The shadows stretched across the floor, reaching for boots, for skin. Calvo panicked first. He fired his rifle into the black. For a heartbeat, the muzzle flash carved a shape from the void, a face without eyes, a body without form, all shadow and hunger. Then the light vanished, and so did Calvo, yanked screaming into the dark. His shadow remained. "Light," Ansel said, her voice hard but trembling. "They fear light. That's why they left the warning." Dr. Corin nodded. "The last sun. When it sets for good, they'll own this world." The crew had limited power cells. Their torches would not last forever. Their only hope was the wreckage, where the emergency beacon still sputtered. If they could amplify it, perhaps a human ship would hear before the shadows consumed them. But to reach it, they would have to cross open ground. At night, they moved at dawn, shadows thin and clinging close. The ruins stretched like a labyrinth, every wall etched with carvings of a civilization that had once built wonders but died screaming into the dark. When they reached the shuttle wreck, the beacon was intact, but power was low, too low. "Not enough to send a signal," Rourke, the engineer, muttered. "We need more." "Then we burn everything," Ansel said. They fed the beacon every scrap of energy they had, power cells, tools, even their last torches. The beacon flared to life, a brilliant blue column piercing the red sky, and the shadows screamed. They came like a tide, pouring from cracks, rising from the earth, peeling themselves from walls. The sun was already sinking, and night fell faster than expected. The crew formed a circle around the beacon, rifles blazing, but for every shadow torn apart by muzzle flash, 3 more slipped closer. They whispered promises. They showed faces of lost loved ones. Dr. Corrin faltered, tears streaking his dust-stained face. "It's them. They're alive in the dark, don't you see?" A hand of shadow wrapped around his throat. He vanished. The beacon's light grew weaker, draining too fast. Rourke screamed that it wouldn't hold. Ansel made the choice. She ripped the last oxygen canisters from their suits and slammed them open. The escaping gas caught flame against the torch's dying ember, erupting into a firestorm. Light engulfed the ruins. Shadows writhed and shrieked, melting back into cracks, scorched by searing brilliance. The crew huddled in the blaze, knowing it wouldn't last. But the beacon still pulsed. Somewhere above, humanity might hear. By dawn, only 2 remained, Ansel and Rourke, their ammo gone, their voices raw. The sun bled across the ruins once more, and the shadows retreated into cracks, hissing in silence. They stood among the ashes of their comrades, beneath the dying red sky, and watched the beacon flicker its last. And then, an answering pulse. A human ship. They weren't saved yet, but humanity had heard, and as long as the light reached them, the shadows would never fully win. If you made it this far, you carried the torch with them. And just like those survivors beneath the red sky, this channel lives on because of you. If this story gripped you, drop a like, hit subscribe, and let me know in the comments what city you're tuning in from. Because even in the darkest night, humanity always finds a way to keep the light burning.